Just after midnight on January 24, 1961, a bomber was coming apart in the night sky over Goldsboro, North Carolina. It was carrying 2 hydrogen bombs, each one more than 250 times the power of Hiroshima. As the aircraft tore itself apart, both bombs fell free into the darkness. One of them began arming itself on the way down, running through step after step toward detonation. Investigators would later find that a single ordinary switch, one cheap safety switch, was all that stood between that night and a thermonuclear explosion on American soil. And inside the disintegrating aircraft, a young pilot named Adam Mattox did something no one else has ever survived. His position had no ejection seat. So as the bomber broke apart around him, he pulled himself to the top hatch and threw himself out into the open air. The only man ever to bail out through the roof of this aircraft and live. The bomber was a B-52 Stratofortress, and the most remarkable thing about it is not that night over North Carolina. It's that 70 years later, older than the grandparents of the crews who fly it, the very same aircraft is still flying combat missions today with no end in sight. This is the story of the airplane that refused to die. The history of the amazing B-52 Stratofortress, brought to you by Aviator DB. Built by aviators, for aviators. To understand the B-52, you have to go back to a moment of real fear. In 1949, the Soviet Union exploded its first atomic bomb, and America's monopoly on the most terrible weapon ever built was suddenly over. The country needed a way to carry nuclear weapons across the entire world, fast enough and high enough to survive. The bomber it had, the giant B-36, was a piston-engined relic, enormous but slow enough that a modern jet fighter could pick it out of the sky with ease. Boeing wanted the contract, and at first, Boeing got it wrong. The company showed up to a review at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio in October 1948 with a design built around straight wings and propeller-driving turboprop engines, yesterday's thinking. The Air Force was blunt. It wasn't good enough. And unless Boeing came back with something far more advanced, the program could go to someone else. What happened next has become legend in American aviation. Boeing's engineers, led by Ed Wells and the brilliant aerodynamicist George Schirra, checked into a hotel in downtown Dayton, the Hotel Van Cleve, and over a single weekend, they tore up their own design and started over. They sketched a radical new machine, a long, thin, swept-back wing, and 8 jet engines slung in pods beneath it. One of them carved a model of the new bomber out of balsa wood in his hotel room. By Monday morning, they walked back in with that model and a 33-page proposal. The aircraft we know as the B-52 was, in its essential shape, born in that room. It was an enormous gamble. The engines they were counting on, the Pratt & Whitney J57, barely existed yet. The first one wouldn't even run on a test stand until 1950. They were designing an airplane around a technology that hadn't been proven. But the bet was right. The prototype, the YB-52, first flew in April 1952. By 1955, the Stratofortress was entering service, and before the production lines finally closed, Boeing would build 744 of them.
Up close, the B-52 is a strange and magnificent machine. Its wing stretches 185 feet, wider than the aircraft is long, and it is deliberately thin and flexible. On the ground, the wingtips sag so far down they ride on small outrigger wheels. In flight, that same wing flexes upwards by several feet, bending like a diving board to soak up the punishment of the air. It looks alarming. It is in fact genius. A wing that bends instead of breaks. And then there is the power. The B-52 is hauled into the sky by 8 engines, 8 of them, slung in 4 twin pods beneath that enormous wing. The early bombers ran on Pratt & Whitney J57 turbojets, the first American engine to reliably break 10,000 pounds of thrust. On a hot day, a fully loaded B-52 would claw its way off the runway, trailing thick black smoke from all 8, the engines spraying water into themselves for an extra kick of thrust. Later, the fleet was re-engined with cleaner, more efficient turbofans. But the logic of 8 never changed. A B-52 could lose an engine, or 2, or even 3, and simply keep flying. It was brute force reliability, and it would matter more and more as the airframe grew old. Then there is the way it lands. The B-52 doesn't carry its wheels under the wings like most aircraft. It balances on 4 main landing gear trucks tucked under the fuselage, in a line, like a bicycle. And because a giant flexible wing can't simply tip into a crosswind without scraping the ground, Boeing did something almost unheard of. They made the landing gear steerable. The pilot can crank the wheels to point down the runway while the whole airplane is still aimed off to one side. So a B-52 can come down in a 40-knot crosswind, flying visibly sideways. A 400,000-pound machine crabbing down the runway as an angle, then straighten out the instant the tyres touch. 8 engines, a wing that bends, wheels that steer. Nothing else has ever looked quite like it. Inside, it was never comfortable. A B-52 crew is 5 people, packed into 2 cramped decks with barely room to turn around. And the escape system is one of the strangest in all of aviation. The crew on the upper deck eject upward, blasting out through the roof. But the 2 crewmen down on the lower deck are fired downward, straight out through the belly of the aircraft. Which means that close to the ground, those downward seats are nearly useless. There is no room for a parachute to open before the Earth arrives. From the very beginning, this was a machine that asked a great deal of the people who flew it. But the B-52 was built for one terrible job first: to carry nuclear weapons around the clock, ready for the end of the world. Under a program called Chrome Dome, the Air Force kept B-52s in the air at all times through the 1960s, fully armed with hydrogen bombs, orbiting the edges of the Soviet Union, so that even a surprise attack could never destroy America's ability to strike back. It was deterrence made real, and it was terrifyingly dangerous. Which brings us back to that night over Goldsboro. On January 24, 1961, a B-52 on one of those alert missions developed a fuel leak, lost control, and broke apart in the air, dropping its 2 Mark 39 hydrogen bombs over North Carolina. On one of them, the parachute deployed, and it drifted down nearly ready to fire. And a later analysis by a government weapons engineer found it had passed through all but one of the steps needed to detonate. One switch. 3 of the 8 crew died that night. 5 lived, including Adam Mattox, who climbed out of the top hatch of a disintegrating bomber and parachuted into the dark. And Goldsboro was not the only one. In January 1966, high above the Spanish coast, a B-52 collided with a tanker that was refueling it. Both aircraft came apart in the sky. 4 hydrogen bombs fell on the farming village of Palo Maris. 2 of them split open on impact, scattering radioactive material across the fields, while a 4th vanished into the Mediterranean and set off a frantic months-long search of the sea floor before it was finally recovered. 2 years later, in 1968, another B-52 caught fire and went down on the frozen sea near Thule in Greenland. Its weapons broke apart on the ice, and to this day, questions linger over whether every last piece was ever accounted for. The military had a chillingly bureaucratic name for these events: broken arrows. Accidents involving live nuclear weapons. They were the hidden price of keeping armed bombers in the air every hour of every day, and they would eventually help bring the whole airborne alert era to an end. But through all of it, the aircraft itself never broke faith. The B-52 flew on. When war came, the B-52 reinvented itself. In Vietnam, the bomber designed to drop nuclear weapons on Moscow was instead loaded with conventional bombs, up to 70,000 pounds of them, and sent to pound targets in the jungle, in raids called Arc Light. And then came the 11 days that defined it. In December 1972, during the campaign called Linebacker 2, waves of B-52s flew straight into the most heavily defended airspace on Earth, over Hanoi, through storms of surface-to-air missiles. The cost was brutal. In the first days alone, 11 bombers were shot down. But the campaign helped force an end to the war. And in those same skies, something almost unthinkable happened. The B-52 still carried a tail gunner, a crewman facing backward, manning guns in the very tail of the aircraft.
On December 18, 1972, a gunner named Samuel Turner swung his guns onto a North Vietnamese MiG-21 closing from behind and shot it down, a lumbering bomber killing a supersonic fighter with guns. Days later, on Christmas Eve, another gunner, Albert Moore, did it again. In the age of the missile, a bomber had won a dogfight twice. Then the world changed, and the B-52 changed with it. When the Cold War ended and the Soviet Union dissolved, the bomber built to end the world quietly found new work. On the opening night of the 1991 Gulf War, a handful of B-52s lifted off from Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana, crossed the Atlantic, launched cruise missiles into Iraq, and flew all the way home again. A single mission of roughly 35 hours and some 14,000 miles, refueling in the air again and again. It is still remembered as one of the longest combat missions ever flown. And it marked a quiet transformation. The high-altitude nuclear bomber had become a precision machine, capable of putting dozens of guided weapons exactly on target from a single airplane. The Balkans, Afghanistan, Iraq again. A bomber designed to fight the Soviet Union has now flown in nearly every American war since Vietnam. Along the way, the B-52 became something larger than an airplane. Through the Cold War, it was the very face of American power. Long rows of them parked on alert, cocked and loaded, crews living beside them, ready to start all 8 engines and go to war in minutes. It seeped into the public imagination too. It is a runaway B-52 crew at the dark heart of the film Dr. Strangelove. And yet, for the people who actually flew it, all that menace softened into something close to affection, which is how a thermonuclear bomber came to wear one of the most beloved nicknames in all of military aviation. Because here is the part that's hardest to believe. The B-52 has outlived almost every aircraft ever built to replace it. The supersonic B-58 Hustler, gone by 1970. The swing-wing B-1 and the stealthy billion-dollar B-2, both younger, both far more advanced, and both now scheduled to retire before the Stratofortress does. The reason is almost humble. The B-52 was simple, rugged, cheap to fly, and endlessly adaptable. One squadron commander put it bluntly. His bombers carried about 17,000 hours on their airframes, a fraction of the 60,000 hours those same pilots had logged in the airliners they flew on the side. Structurally, these old warhorses still have decades left in them. So instead of replacing the B-52, the Air Force is rebuilding it. Right now, the B-52 is being given an almost total transplant. Brand new Rolls-Royce F-130 engines are replacing the originals. A powerful new radar, new avionics throughout. When it's done, the aircraft will be redesignated the B-52J, and the plan is to keep it flying into the 2050s, which would make it, almost certainly, the first combat aircraft in history to serve for a full century. Crews tell stories of grandfathers, fathers, and children who have all flown the very same airplane, decades apart. And somewhere along the way they gave it a name, rough and affectionate, the way you only talk about something you trust. They call it the Buff.
That work of keeping the old bomber alive is not without cost. Just this past week, in June of 2026, a B-52 went down on a test flight at Edwards Air Force Base in California, a flight flown to modernize the fleet and carry it into the future. 8 people aboard were lost. The investigation will take months, and the airplane they were working to preserve flies on, carried forward now by the next generation of crews who will keep the legend alive. 70 years after it first took to the sky, sketched over a weekend, bent by a near catastrophe over North Carolina, flown through every American war since Vietnam, the B-52 Stratofortress is still here. Still flying, still indispensable. The B-52, proof that the best machines aren't always the fastest or the newest, but the ones built so well and so wisely that the world simply never stops needing them. If you love these deep dives into the legends that built aviation, subscribe and tell us in the comments what's your favorite B-52 story or fact.
For the latest aviation news, a detailed encyclopedia of nearly every aircraft ever built, and a place to track your own aircraft sightings, visit aviatordb.com, the site built by aviators for aviators. Subscribe, and we'll see you next time as we tell the story of another legend that earned its place in the sky.